Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, the show where we take a look at some of the biggest news stories surrounding Chelsea in recent days. Got some interesting topics to debate and discuss today. Before we get into that, of course there's been so much fallout about the defeat to Bayern Munich, the nature of it, the convincing and humbling nature of it. Of course, I uploaded my rational perspective on the game, but as well, today released an article for All Things Chelsea. A full post-mortem on the game, over 2,000 words I wrote about it. It's not so much in-depth on the game and, the game itself. It's more on the wider topic of Chelsea being competitive in the Champions League, how we've regressed after that Champions League triumph in 2012. What's gone wrong, where the squad currently is, and what we need to do to get back to the top, hopefully, in the future. So go and check it out. Link will be in the description box below. We will touch on Lampard and Bayern later on in this video, because there is some other stories that have come out about it and some analysis, and I think it is worth touching on. But let's get into it firstly with Willian, because his contract situation very much feels up in the air. It isn't certain. And before we get into all this, he did make some comments recently after the game on Tuesday about the situation and how pretty much it's in a situation where he could very likely leave at the end of the season. So his quotes were, "Chelsea offered me 2 years and they are not going to change what he offered. I said I wanted 3 more years. The situation is difficult because of this. I really don't know if it will be possible." I remember touching on Willian's contract a few months back, I think pre-Christmas. And recently we found out that he wants 3 years, as he states in those quotes there. And pretty much since that's happened, there's been a lot of reaction to it. As we know, there is a lot of negativity and criticism of Willian online. I've been a defender of Willian in the past. I think he is a player. I think when he leaves Chelsea, which I think will be very soon, I think he will be looked back on very fondly for his years at the club, his big goal contributions, the things he's done at the club. I think he is a player that, because he's maybe stayed a few years too long for Chelsea, I think fans maybe have grown tired of him, but I think he will be admired in the years to come. I really do. I think he has had some special moments even this year as well. And I think he has been a useful player for Lampard. He really has, especially in earlier parts of the season. I think he really helped the team. He was earning his place. He was earning his spot in the team, his hard work rate, which has never really left him. And even his goal tally, he was scoring big goals. The Tottenham game this year is a prime example of what he can give you. But a 3-year deal is just too much for a player of his age, for a player who his best years are firmly behind him. I think it's time the club cut ties. I really do. Chelsea need to refresh that area. They already have with Callum Hudson-ODOI, bringing in Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech. Going to get that name right now. And, maybe Jeremy Boga, of course, Jadon Sancho. Chelsea need to do a lot of refreshing in areas. And I think both Willian and Pedro, I do think the time has come for them to leave Chelsea. I really do. And if Frank wants to mould this squad, I think he needs to get rid of players like that. Because although Willian is a good professional, I think, in my opinion, and has offered Chelsea a lot, I just think I agree with a lot of people that you need to move forward. Chelsea, there's too much of sort of a jumble of players in this squad that have maybe outlasted and maybe are just staying on too long, and I think for us to really transition into a new era, you need to get rid of the past really and cut ties. And Willian, if he would have maybe said 1 year, would have been content for 1 year, then maybe he could have stayed on, been faded out the team. But for 3 years, it's just too exorbitant, and I think it would, especially for a player who's clearly on high wages, I don't think it's beneficial to the club. And I think there are players of a younger age, of a better quality at the moment that Chelsea can go out, spend money on, and refresh that area, which is very much needed for me. So let me know your opinions on Willian, his future. Do you think he will leave, or do you think Chelsea will bow to his demands and give him another contract? Now moving on to a transfer target in the striking area, and Timo Werner. Dean Jones of Bleacher Report is reporting that Chelsea could be in for Timo Werner in the summer. His article very much goes into Liverpool. And of course, because apparently Werner's sort of preferred destination is Liverpool and going to Jurgen Klopp. But he does report Chelsea do have an opportunity potentially to get in front of Liverpool and make this deal happen. He reports that there is another issue for Liverpool when dealing with the pursuit of Werner. Chelsea have now shown firm interest too. They touched base over a deal in January and did the same with Jadon Sancho at Borussia Dortmund. Sources say Werner prefers Anfield as a destination, but a charm offensive could yet sway his thinking if Chelsea were to make him an influential part of their next step. I spoke about Werner in January. It very much was unlikely, and you saw what they did in the Champions League against Spurs. Potentially, they could still win that Bundesliga title under Julian Nagelsmann. Of course, Ampadu's there as well, and he's doing very well. Werner is, one of those targets, and I think, he falls into the same category as Dembele. I think it's intriguing, the situation with the striker, because Tammy has had fitness problems recently, and of course Giroud's come back into the fold. I was thinking, watching the game, a Napoli game against Barcelona, and of course Mertens scored a wonderful goal there. Chelsea could go in for Mertens, and I think Mertens would be a brilliant acquisition in terms of not only because of probably not having to pay an exorbitant fee to Napoli because of his contract situation, and Chelsea have wanted him and been in negotiations with Napoli before. But, if Frank wants to, keep the faith with Tammy, I think, he would go for an older striker maybe there if Giroud is going out the door and if Mitch is going out the door as well. But Werner is one of those players, as I spoke about before. Would they sacrifice first team football? And I even think it's a danger if he was to go to Liverpool. That front three, I don't see, although refreshing that area, I think Werner would have a very difficult time if those three players continue to form they're in to get in front of those. So it could be a similar issue at Chelsea, and maybe at Chelsea he's got a better chance, of getting in front of Tammy Abraham. But it's going to be very intriguing to me where Chelsea prioritise left back, centre back, goalkeeper, maybe a midfielder, which I don't personally think we need, but especially in the striking area, what type of striker will Chelsea be prioritising? Will they be prioritising a striker of Werner's calibre, sort of a 22, 23-year-old, someone very much who can very much compete with Tammy in terms of age and is coming into the prime of their career? Or are they going to go for an older striker of a Giroud type, like a Mertens, that could supplement Tammy Abraham's development and be a rotational striker? That's going to be intriguing. Do you think Timo Werner could come to Chelsea, or do you think he will move to Liverpool in the summer? Let me know in the comments below. And finally, of course, I said at the start of the video, I want to touch on the Bayern game. Of course, I wrote my article, but there were some really interesting articles. Dominic Fifield of The Athletic wrote a really good piece on Chelsea's senior players and how they were shown up by Bayern. It's time for some to move on. Matt Law wrote a good article. Jacob Steinberg of The Guardian as well, I thought wrote a really good article and piece on this and the challenge for Frank Lampard. And as I was speaking about Willian, Pedro, Marcos Alonso, and not only older players in the squad, I look at the likes of Ross Barkley. Although I'm a really big fan of his, Antonio Rudiger hasn't come back to the form he once had. And especially with Ethan Ampadu coming back in the summer, potentially, that area as well is going to be quite stacked, like midfield. And you just have to question as well. Dave, I think, is another perfect example. Emerson, questions over him as well. There needs to be a reshuffling, really, and there's going to be some big additions. In my article as well, I said that, Marcos Alonso, Pedro, Willian, I think there was another player in there as well. I touched on probably Ross Barkley as well. That could potentially be all gone. It's very rare for a big club to move all of those players, especially on high wages, out in one summer. But I think a majority of them do need to leave. I really do. I think in the case of Ross Barkley, he had a really good game against Spurs, but his career has been defined by false dawns. It really has. And he's never going to be at that level. He really is consistently. He can be a good sort of makeshift player and in certain situations can really work. But I can never trust him to be a consistently good enough player. And I think there are better players Chelsea could fulfill their time with, especially with Ruben coming back. And if Ruben comes back as anything like the player he was before his injury, he will take the place of Ross Barkley. He really will. And he'll take the place of others as well. And as well, I think it's about the style of football Chelsea want to play. I think the likes of Marcos Alonso, a specialist player who's a left wing back, who very much excelled under Antonio Conte and his system. But I feel like Chelsea, even though we're playing a 3-4-3 at the moment, probably to accommodate some of those players, I think that longer term we could move to a 4-3-3, and that's not going to help Marcos Alonso. And I just think generally the quality on that left side needs to be refreshed, whether it's an Alex Telles or a Gramado or a Chilwell, which apparently Lampard prefers. It needs to be refreshed in that area. Let me know your opinions. Who do you think will stay? Who do you think will go? Are there any of the players that I've touched on, older players, that you still think can contribute something to Chelsea? Maybe not a starting player, but a player that maybe has something left in them to contribute to the squad as maybe a backup player. I'm really intrigued to see that, and it's going to be something we're going to find out in the coming months for sure. But I definitely agree with all those articles, and I urge you to go and read those articles because I think they really are enlightening on the current situation at Chelsea. But those are my opinions on Chelsea and how we're going to move forward. So that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification button to never miss an upload. Also give the video a like, it really helps out the channel. Follow me on Twitter at @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.